gentlemen, and welcome to this edition of Ask the Doctors on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. I'm Eric Marsh, Executive Director of Whitewater Community Television. Ever so glad that you're able to spend a little time with us today as we... Did you get your ND?
Nope, not Ask the Doctors today.
As we spend another hour trying to answer some of your questions, Ask the Doctors is the show. We do have on one side of me, he has the bona fides, Wayne County's health officer, Dr. David Jetmore. Sir, thanks for being here.
It's always a pleasure, Eric.
And sitting in for Dr. Huth, it took him 57 weeks to decide to take one off. We have pharmacist, local business person, member of the Wayne County Health Board, Pete Zaleski. Sir?
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for agreeing to sit in with us. We really do appreciate it.
Not Dr. Huth, and do not plan to replace the doctor.
But you can answer some questions. You can
Absolutely.
help us out with some things. I think we can get you to talk about this from maybe a perspective that we haven't talked about it, how it has affected maybe the downtown area, business, your business, that type thing. I think that would be interesting. And as you, as a member of the health board, have really kind of gone through this, I think your perspective on where we are right now will be vital to us. So thank you seriously for being here.
Thank you.
We always start with what the week was like for you. And Doctor, talk to us about where things are looking from your side of the world.
Compared to where we've been in the past year in the pandemic, we're in a good place. Our positivity rate is 3.9, although it is slowly creeping upward. We had it at one time down to 1.8. We're still at the blue level. I think the most important message and the most important goal for us is to continue to get as many people vaccinated as we possibly can, especially before the fall. Most epidemiologists are predicting a wave in the fall, which probably won't be anything like it was last November and December, which is really late fall, because we've got so many people that are vaccinated, and as well as a lot of people that have immunity from having the virus. We're preparing to demobilize our mass vaccination site at the Elder Beerman building, and we're going to start doing the vaccinations at the Public Health building, which is on the corner of South A and 5th Street. We'll continue to use that building as well as our mobile unit to vaccinate people. Mm-hmm. In fact, we plan to have that mobile unit at the fair this year, if people want to get vaccinated there. And we're looking ahead, hoping to get more children vaccinated. Pfizer BioNTech has applied for to the FDA to be able to vaccinate children aged 12 through 15. Mm-hmm. So we're hoping we can get more kids vaccinated. I think one of the things that would be a tremendous benefit to the school-age kids is, especially high schoolers, if an entire sports team gets vaccinated, we don't have to, we're not going to have to isolate for 2 weeks the entire team members. Mm-hmm. So that should be an impetus to for our young athletes. We're on the vaccination rate, we've vaccinated almost 40%, 38.9% of our people here in Wayne County, which is behind the United States, which is at 45%. But we're still plowing forward. We're not having the long lines to get vaccinations that we had earlier. I'm sure Pete remembers those lines and enthusiastic shoulders that were uncovered to get their vaccinations. But hopefully we'll steadily gain ground and work our percentage up past 40% on to 50, 60, and hopefully 70. We'll see what happens. We'll see what unfolds, Eric.
Okay. You mentioned Pfizer has applied to vaccinate kids as young as 12.
Yeah.
I also saw that they have actually begun their application to the FDA for full approval of their vaccine, which could in some ways change the dynamic of how things look and how businesses begin to approach their employees about getting vaccinated.
I think you're exactly right. I think as an employer, I think you're loath to tell your employees that they have to get a vaccine that only has been on an emergency release basis, but this full acceptance by the FDA, I think, will make some employers ask their employees to get the vaccination as a term of their employment. I know I do that for Reed Hospital. I have, as one of the terms of working there, is I get a vaccination for the common flu every winter. Mm-hmm. So there's certainly precedent for that.
Pete, talk a little bit about, as a health board member, and I know that you've helped out at the Elder Beerman site on occasion. Talk about what the doctor has mentioned, the fact that at one point in time there were a number of people out there, it looked like vaccination rates would end up 50% or better. I don't know that anybody ever expected 100%, but the number kind of is stalling out even below that 40%. Talk about what you see, and as you go through the community, what you're hearing from people as to where their hesitancy is or why.
I think, well, early on, our supply of vaccine wasn't there. If we could had 1,000 more doses early on, we would have had 1,000 more doses in arms a week. Now we've got thousands of doses in storage that we're still waiting to give to folks. So where our point is not the supply now; it's now the number of people coming in. Mm-hmm. I think there's fear of the vaccine. There's some fallacies that, depending on what you read in certain articles, whether it's social media or certain news outlets, that are not true about the vaccine. There's some concerns about the speed with which it was developed, long-term effects, and I think the vaccine's been in enough arms now to show an effective vaccine that's safe and effective, mm-hmm. Even when there was a slight hiccup with the J&J vaccine. The FDA has phase 4 trials that they do for every medication, whether it's a emergency use or fully authorized, and they put the brakes on and go, let's investigate. Let's make sure that we're doing the right thing by continuing to administer this vaccine. So my hope is that the pause lets folks know that this is a safe vaccine. We're going through the same process we go with every medication for trials after a product is put to market.
You mentioned that you were going to be winding down the Elder Beerman site. Talk a little bit, if you can, and I don't know what decisions yet have been made by the health board. They meet 2 weeks from now, I think.
In a couple weeks.
As to when that is going to begin, and when people come to the health department, at that point, will they be able to say, listen, I'd like the Moderna, or I'd like the J&J, because you all have gone back to J&J. They haven't been able to choose. It's kind of been a large open area. This is a little bit more one-on-one. Will they be able to say, listen, I can only get here one time, give me the J&J, and then move on, or is that something you all will work in consultation with them about?
I think there's going to be times looking in the future that we may have both vaccines and we can honor their request, and there may be times when we only have Moderna, or maybe we only have Johnson & Johnson. At this point, we've gotten Johnson & Johnson from the state, which is where we receive our vaccine, mm-hmm. In small amounts. We get a ready supply of Moderna vaccine every week, 800 doses. The Johnson & Johnson has been more if they have it, they'll give it to us. So I think if people call in to the health department, we'll be able to answer that question. In fact, if they're determined to have one of the vaccines or the other, we don't have Pfizer because we don't have the ability to the special refrigerators to keep it at such a cool temperature. The hospital has the Pfizer vaccine, but we'll have the other two, and we'll try to accommodate people.
When does that drawdown at the Elder Beerman begin, or has it?
We're about to begin that, and I don't know how long it'll take to phase that out. We want to kind of a phase out there and a build up at our other site, the public health building.
Okay. Pete, talk a little bit about what you've seen. I mean, you physically, from your location, see people walking down the street, gathering at places. Talk about over the last even year, how that downtown traffic in and out of your location, people just walking, are you beginning to see more and more activity from where it was, or are you still finding things are still pretty slow in that area?
I think what we've seen is more normal traffic, normal being prior to COVID, is occurring downtown. And I'm hopeful that we'll have the festivals back downtown, the concerts on Elstro, but there's more folks walking the streets and walking the sidewalks now than there were in the fall. From a business standpoint, our traffic in the store has increased. When at the height of the lockdown, we were doing strictly just pickup or taking to the car side, and we did that for a month or so. And traffic has been slow. We're still seeing a large amount of deliveries that we're getting to people.
Okay.
So there's still some hesitancy coming out. I think that population 50 and over probably has a little more hesitancy coming out than younger folks.
Okay. You're watching Ask the Doctors on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11, WCTV Channel 21, and streaming on Facebook Live. We are taking your questions on our Facebook page as well as on Twitter at WCTV Info. And even though he's not a doctor, he can answer some questions, right?
I can answer a few.
There you go.
He's pretty smart. I bet he can answer. I bet he can answer. I was going to defer him all the hard ones.
Okay.
As an initiation rite.
But you want him to come back at some point,
yeah,
right?
That's right. Maybe I better hold off on that.
Okay. Obviously, with Dr. Huth not being here, we won't have our normal near the end of the show look at the numbers for the week, so we'll catch that up with you next week. But we are here to try to answer your questions. So let's see if we've got one or two that we can try to take a little bit early. I guess we do. Do you feel it safe to allow kids to participate in summer camps or pool trips where masking and social distancing will not be required?
That's a tough one. The one thing about...
That's the one that Pete should answer then, right?
You want to take that, Pete?
Well, at this point, the CDC's not recommending camps without masking. So just based off the experts that at the CDC, I would have concerns of camps or day camps or sleepover camps without masking at this point.
And you're dealing with a population that are all completely unvaccinated. So that's something else to consider. But yeah, that's a CDC recommendation, is social distancing and masking.
We know they're not immune. There's no one that we can say is immune to getting COVID at this point, even completely vaccinated people, I think. But the likelihood of young people contracting COVID and passing it on in kind of those younger ages where maybe some of these day camps are going on is a little bit lower, question mark. And I think that's where some of the questioning or concern comes from. The pool is going to reopen. They're having JUCO again with the Parks Department. our Richmond Civic Theater having their camp. I think that's where some of this is coming from. So I think that's where the concern is and the questions are.
Well, one of the things that the environment has that is good about that is you're outside. I think anytime you're outside, your chances of catching COVID are markedly decreased. I mean, the virus, as you exhale, quickly disperses in the air, and people around you are not going to get an infective dose. I don't know if anybody's definitively answered the question, do kids spread this as much as adults do? Which I think is a question you posed. Mm-hmm. I suspect that it may be a little bit less, but it's certainly a factor. We've seen it spread this winter whenever school-age kids got together at one another's homes or for sleepovers. We could see it spread. So, I'm sure it kills a parent not to send their kid to summer camp, but I would want my child to be safe from COVID.
Okay. Let's see if we can get another question in. Will the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines require a third dose or annual booster?
Well, nobody knows for sure yet because, we're only about 6 months out from starting these vaccinations. I mean, what we need to do is people who are vaccinated, we need to do immunologic studies, antibodies as well as, the T-cell status of these people to see if their immunity is enough to keep them safe from the virus. Both CEOs of both of those companies have said they thought that we probably would need a booster. And what that means is, we see boosters with our annual flu shot as a booster. The immune protection of the body over time decreases, and if it gets to a certain level, you become able to be infected again. So I personally think we will probably not reach herd immunity, and I think that we're going to have to deal with this virus for a long time, and I think part of one of the things we do each year to prepare for winter is to get a COVID booster shot.
Any thoughts? I mean, there's no way to know for sure, but any thoughts on if we needed that booster, how that would work? Those people who haven't had the shot already probably aren't going to get it. So those who have had it, they end up being notified in some way because, again, you've got people who have had it at various times, who have various levels of immunity. Do you just drag? I mean, the annual flu shot you generally get most people around the same time, October, mm-hmm. November.
Yeah.
If you got your Moderna shot or your Pfizer shot in January, somebody else got it in April, do you booster everybody at the same time, or do you need to figure out how to tell people, okay, we think we're about 6 months in, and at 6 months, 8 months, whatever that number is, that's when you need to do it, and we start dinging people through email or something? I mean, I assume there's been information gathered. People went in, people registered for their tests or their shots. Do you start using that information to go, you need a booster now, you need a booster now?
I think eventually you're going to see this as a combo product with the flu vaccine. So when you go get the flu vaccine, you're also getting this within the same injection. But the concern there is, even with influenza, we're still immunizing less than 50% of the population for flu annually.
Yeah, it's pretty dismal. It gets down to some years like 25 to 30% of people. I agree. Already the flu shot we get, a lot of times is trivalent or quadrivalent. It's got
is what? I'm sorry.
It's three different vaccines, all for different varieties of flu.
Okay.
H1N1 and other forms of the flu that can hit every year. So it would be, I'm sure you're right, they would make it all, put it all together, you'd get one injection. I think the question you raised of when would people, I think probably the epidemiologists are going to give us a cutoff. You know, if you get your Pfizer or Moderna vaccine next October, and the new flu comes out in November, the new flu vaccine, you're probably not going to have it. But they'll determine a lead-up time and go from there.
We're taking your questions on our Facebook page for Dr. David Jetmore, Pete Zaleski, member of the Wayne County Health Board, local business owner, pharmacist here in town, shot giver, drug passer outer.
Fly fisherman, don't forget that. Fly fisherman.
Fly fisherman?
That's
Fly.
right.
Okay. He's fly. Good. We're also taking your questions on Twitter at WCTV Info. They're not going to let me do this with you anymore. If you have a question, please get it to us. Let's try to get another one through here for the doctor and his guest. Are there any medications I should avoid taking if I have COVID-19? And I guess we should still mention that people are still being tested for COVID-19. That test is still out there. People are still getting COVID-19. We do still have people in the hospital, and we do still have deaths from COVID. So that's we haven't talked about that a great deal. We've talked a lot about vaccinations. We haven't talked about how much of this is still going on throughout the country. Not just, we hear India a great deal right now, but we don't hear a lot still about what's happening here in the United States.
Well,
I'm not aware of any medications restrictions while having COVID. The only restriction prior to getting the vaccine, it's not recommended to pre-treat with ibuprofen or Tylenol prior to getting the shot.
Okay.
But with an active COVID case, there isn't any adverse reactions or increase in adverse reactions from medications because of having COVID that I'm aware of.
it's great having a pharmacist here to answer the medication questions. I feel like this is even better. Ask the doctor and the pharmacist. We could hear one of the cameramen laughing in the background.
That show starts at 3. This one, no.
But,
okay.
you know,
Yeah.
in answer to your comment, yes, the hospital has a daily census of 8 to 10 people every day. There's been somebody on a respirator, desperately ill for the past few weeks. People in Detroit and in Michigan, they're having a horrible time with this pandemic. Their hospitals are becoming overwhelmed with COVID patients. And I was looking today on the state publishes, Indiana State Department of Health publishes that little Indiana map. All the counties are assigned their little color. And I was looking at the counties right along the border with Michigan, and their percent positive rate was up there like 15, 18, 19% going along Steuben and those counties up along the
around
Michigan
Lake
border.
County in that area.
Yeah,
up in that,
yeah.
okay.
As you go, there's less as you go westward. But if up in that northeast corner, excuse me. Probably my wife
Pizza
telling
delivery.
me I need to bring bread home or something. They've got that B117, that United Kingdom variant that's very, very easily transmitted. So, but I think you can sort of see it playing out on that map as you get the closer you get to Detroit, the more yellow and orange you start to see.
Mm-hmm. And you have, I'm not sure if in the control room they're able to find the state website and be able to bring that map up for us. They may not be able to do that, but if they can, that would be great to be able to show, because a number of weeks ago when you looked at that map, it was blue. I mean, all across the state, everything had dropped to the point of being blue. Then we started hearing about Michigan, and we started seeing some of that creep along into the state. But now you're starting to see it come along the western edge, I think, a little bit, and even into a couple of the counties beyond that Michigan area. You're starting to see that creep again as you look at it.
Yeah, it's disconcerting. That's why I tell everyone I meet to get vaccinated. People are going to start to avoid me, or maybe they already are. I don't know.
Probably not.
But even locally, we saw an increase in cases of about 20% last month. Just within the last day or so, I think we've had our first death from COVID for May. So even locally.
Ooh.
Wow. Okay. That's
Ryan put it
worse
up
than
for us.
That's worse than the last time I looked at it.
Yeah.
Thank you, by the way. Ryan Harris, Steve Bonwig, handling the controls. We were talking about some of the counties up north, closer to Michigan, showing signs, but we're beginning to see that what was a complete blue map at one point, we're starting to see those colors change dramatically through there.
Yeah, and it's really, it kind of paints a picture. You can see right along the Ohio River, you're starting to see yellow, and then going across into the central part of Indiana. But those three counties in that northeast corner of Indiana are all orange and have very, very high positivity rates. Yeah, that's LaGrange County. They got a positivity rate of 15.13 compared to our 3.9.
Right.
So, this can change in a heartbeat, what we're experiencing as a state and as a county.
Thank you for doing that. I appreciate that. You're watching Ask the Doctors on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11, WCTV Channel 21, streaming on our Facebook page. You can put your questions for Dr. David Jetmore, Pete Zaleski on our Facebook page, also on Twitter at WCTV Info. Appreciate them. Appreciate the time, seriously. And Dr. Huth, obviously, taking a week off for the first time in over a year of doing this. We appreciate that. Obviously, we're getting a few questions in, so let's see if we can get one or two more questions in. Can I protect myself from COVID infection with a saline nasal rinse?
I would say no. If you I think the idea from this is if you had a saline nasal rinse, you could wash away these viruses. The problem is these viruses attach. They've got that little probe that attaches to a receptor site, and that's not going to be dislodged with a saltwater lavage of the nose.
No?
No. And the other thing, these things are very high in the nose. Most people don't get the water up to the level, the very top of the nose. Why have you been using saline rinses? Is hoping to avoid? You look like you're devastated.
No, no, I'm not devastated.
All right.
And no, I haven't been using those. But that's interesting because we've been hearing about the droplets, and you would think that it would be inhaled. So I'm sure there would be a thought process that, if you can clean that out, you'd be good.
Well,
you get to it fast enough.
Yeah, I think these droplets with the virus in them they almost, as soon as they hit mucous membrane, they attach.
Okay. Next question. Is there anything I should do to help protect my family as we travel this summer, especially indoors at restaurants and hotels? We keep hearing the travel industry is really beginning to pick up. More people flying, more people going through airports. If they're flying, they're staying at a hotel, restaurant, particularly kids that tend to get into a little bit of everything. It's be interesting. Protection.
Get vaccinated. And obviously.
Okay.
and the travel industry, the FAA extended masking through September, I believe. Does that sound? I believe it was September. So any public transport, planes, trains, busing is all extended through September. But getting vaccinated is our way out and our way back to normalcy and hopefully travel.
Yeah, I would echo what Pete said. I think anybody that wants to travel, I think the first thing I do is get vaccinated. Now, if it's a family, they're talking about traveling with their kids. If they're kids that haven't been vaccinated, I would wear a mask and distance. And when you're seated at a restaurant, obviously you have to take your mask off. But I would use the normal COVID precautions. Hopefully, a lot of these younger people can be vaccinated, the 12 to 15-year-olds, and that will be another huge segment of our society that will be able to be protected from the virus. But yeah, if you're going to travel, the first, number one is to get vaccinated.
Okay. Next question. Could COVID-19 cause neurological symptoms?
Yes, it can, and it does cause neurologic symptoms. People that survive COVID often have what's called just brain fog. They have problems with short-term memory, and I think this has been shown at autopsy too, that there's inflammation in the brain. The virus affects the lungs. It can affect the kidneys, the brain. It's kind of a multi-organ disease, whereas the ordinary flu is basically a pulmonary disease. It basically affects your lungs. And when you recover from it, you're basically where you were before you got the flu. With COVID, the jury's still out on some of these effects on people. Mm-hmm. Some of these effects may be permanent. In other words, people may have permanent, say, pulmonary damage or lung damage long after they've healed up from the disease, and it may persist for the rest of their life. It affects the heart as well. That's one of the organs that I left out. But yes, it can affect the brain and does.
Okay. Next question. Does weather affect the spread of the coronavirus outside? Now, this was a conversation that we were having last year at one point in time, coming out of winter into spring, going, when things warm up, people are outside, maybe we won't see as much infection. That really didn't happen. Our summer was still pretty bad. It got worse in the fall, but we still kept seeing a rise during the summer months. We're hoping that's less because there are people who are vaccinated, and there weren't as many gatherings last summer. This year, they're beginning to hold concerts again. Some of the theaters are beginning to open up. So you're finding people, there'll be the fair this year. So you're finding people in enclosed spaces again this summer where we didn't have that last summer.
Well, we did talk about that, and I think when people gather indoors, and what makes people gather indoors in the winter, in the northern climates, we gather indoors. In the summer, if you live in Florida, in August, you dash from air-conditioned room to an air-conditioned car to another air-conditioned room. I mean, you want to be inside.
Or Louisiana.
Louisiana's the same way. Georgia, all of those southern states. And then there are local weather phenomena. If the wind's blowing, you're upwind from anybody, you're not gonna get any of the viral particles, any droplet particles. The wind will carry them away. If it rains, the rain will carry the virus into the ground. But who wants to be out in the wind and the rain, right? We probably want to be inside. I will say this one thing, which is kind of a reassuring thing. I don't think there's ever been, if I'm not mistaken, any real mass outbreak that's been linked to an outdoor venue. Being outdoors, that virus dissipates so much that it really it really gives a big level of safety. So there you have it, Eric.
Even if you're an unvaccinated person?
Yeah, I think it's safer for unvaccinated people to be outdoors than it is to be indoors. But I hope all of this will become a moot point because there'll be so many people vaccinated. We won't have to worry about these things.
I love your optimistic nature. I really do. I love your optimistic nature. You're watching Ask the Doctors on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. We're taking your questions. We still have time to get a few more in from our Facebook page as well as at WCTV Info. Let's keep going. Has there been any more information released about people with certain blood types being more susceptible to COVID-19?
You know, I heard about this early in the pandemic.
I'm glad you did. I didn't. But that's why we have you here.
Well, I don't hear anything more. I haven't heard anything more recently that some people with certain blood types were more susceptible to COVID and maybe even got sicker when they had COVID with certain blood types compared to other blood types. I think there's genetic differences between people that make this virus. One person has no symptoms and doesn't even know they've had it. The other person's deathly ill, winds up on a respirator and dies. How could that be? One of the genetic studies that I've seen, I mentioned this 6 months ago. I haven't heard anything more about this recently, but most people of Northern European descent have some Neanderthal DNA. It ranges from 4, 5, 6%. The people with the most Neanderthal DNA are a group of people in Pakistan. When those people were hospitalized with COVID, they were twice as likely to die as people that did not have this Neanderthal DNA. I know I don't want it, there won't be a test on this. No one has to memorize that little fact. But I only bring it up to say that just the genetic or DNA differences between people seem to affect the outcome of people to this disease. I think we'll find out. We'll be studying this for years, and we'll find out we'll unravel this mystery as time goes by. But the blood type would fit in with the idea of people having different DNA.
Okay. When you kind of look at what's going on as a member of the Wayne County Health Board, are there ways that the health board can help educate the community more, or the health department with some assistance from the health board, help educate the community, answer more of the questions? You mentioned very early on that you're still hearing people recite some of the incorrect facts that are out there. How do we, you're never going to get 100%. We've wiped that out. We may not even hit that 70-75% range. The idea at this point may be, even though the president has an idea of trying to get at least one dose in 75%, I think was the number.
70% by July 4th.
By July 4th. If we're even going to come close to something like that in this county, what do we need to do? How do we need to try to educate? What do we need to tell people that might help push that number? Let's go 50. I'm not as optimistic as he is.
And not just from the health board, I think every member of the community that's had the vaccine, not be tight-lipped about it. Let folks know you've had the vaccine. So in your circles, and Dr. Jetmore's circles, in each of those circles, folks know you've had the vaccine, why you've gotten the vaccine, and in a respectable manner, just asking folks, what's your concerns and how can we help you with that?
If they don't believe, I mean, there is the hesitancy seems to be, some is fear, some is disbelief. For those with the fear, Is that enough in your mind? And you've been around people who don't like shots, don't like taking pills, whatever
Right.
the case may be. Is that enough to get over that hesitancy? To diminish it for some? And we know this is going to be small increments to move this.
It's going to be incremental, and you're seeing surveys come out, and there was a great article in New York Times from Jan Hoffman discussing hesitancy, and from a month ago, the folks that were definitely not, or I'm waiting to see, that percentage of folks that are in that camp of waiting to see or not getting it is decreasing. And the reason for most folks isn't necessarily political ties. It really is a fear of the vaccine and just not knowing what the long-term effects are. Concern, they've heard folks say that they had a fever for the next 24 hours, or the side effect from the immediate vaccine. We've had no lasting side effects from folks that have had the vaccine at the health department. At least it's been reported back to us. So we're at the point where we've had enough people get the vaccine. It's a safe vaccine. It's an effective vaccine.
Okay. We're still taking your questions on our Facebook page as well as on at WCTV Info. Let's go to the next question. If you've already had COVID-19, is it safe or even needed to get the vaccine? There is some immunity, I guess, when you...
There's two schools of thought for this. I mean, the official FDA, Dr. Fauci line is you should get fully vaccinated. However, I've heard people, other well-qualified people, voice the opinion, and this was when we had hardly any vaccine at all, that those people reach close to the people that have had COVID. If they have just one shot, the first shot, they basically have the same immunity as somebody that's never had COVID and has had the two-shot regimen. And those people advocated that they just get one shot because we needed all this vaccine. But they have done studies looking at the immunity of people that have had COVID and had one shot, and it's very similar to someone that's been fully vaccinated.
Good news.
But if I had COVID, I would certainly get at least one shot of COVID. I would not say I've got, because when you're vaccinated, you have you have a measured amount of the vaccine that's going to generate a known immune response. We've got a lot of evidence that people that have milder cases of COVID do not have an immune protection level that some other people might have more severe case. So don't not get vaccinated because you've had COVID. Don't go ahead and get your vaccination.
Okay. If someone wants to do that this week, are you all still running your Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday hours at the Elder Beerman site
Yes,
this
we
coming
are.
week?
We are.
Okay. Next question. Is testing for antibodies relevant, or are we just focused on vaccines now? And I guess this goes back to something I and Dr. Huth have talked about. We've talked about vaccines and getting vaccinated so much. There were things that we weren't talking about for a period of time. So we were talking about monoclonal antibodies and things of that nature.
Yeah, we were talking about that as treatment, monoclonal antibodies.
Right.
I think this person's asking, is it about testing for antibodies? It depends on what you're trying to find out. You know, if you had you'd get antibodies to see if you've had COVID. That would be the reason for getting it. I know there was a lot of interest in this a year ago, Pete, because, and you may have heard some of this, people say, I was really sick and
Did I have it?
Yeah, I wonder if I had it. You know, I was really sick in December or January. I think I had it. And those were the main people that are interested in getting the antibodies. that tells you if you've had the disease. That tells you something that's happened in the past. It's not nearly as important as a PCR test to see if you have COVID now.
Okay.
But the antibody test is extremely relevant when we're seeing how long is the vaccine going to be effective in folks. You saw we're early on there saying it's good for 3 months. Once we started getting more data back from people that are in those original studies, then they were able to say, okay, it's definitely good for 6 months.
Right.
And I think here in the next month or so, you're going to see people that have had the vaccine for 9 months now, and you're going to see that data where it says, okay, now it's good for 9 months, and that it's relevant in seeing how long the vaccine is effective in folks.
And we have to remember, there were the people that were in the trials.
Correct.
That's who they're studying, and those trials began over a year ago now, didn't they?
Yeah. And there's some really interesting antibody studies going on in people that have had organ transplants that are on immune suppressors, so their organs don't reject, to see how their reaction and their antibody buildup is over time, and those are some pretty interesting studies that are ongoing.
And I think that I think people hearing that type of thing will also feel a little bit better, because to keep updating what they're finding in the studies, particularly from the folks that were in the trials, lets people know that it is still being watched, time is passing, and those are the folks that they're following very, very closely to find out, again, how long the immunity lasts. Are there any long-lasting or longer-lasting effects from the vaccine? So that's important, I think, for folks to know that, yes, those folks that were in the clinical trials are still being followed. We're still gathering information and finding out information from them.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right.
We're within our last 12 minutes or so of Ask the Doctors. We still have time to get your question if you want to try to get one in on our Facebook page, as well as on Twitter at WCTV Info. Let's go to our next question, please. And it's long. Since it seems the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines will require a third dose or an annual booster, how will we know that it is time for those additional doses? Will the state or local health department reach out to citizens who have been vaccinated to schedule those shots? Something that I kind of asked earlier.
Yeah,
Somebody was typing as I was writing.
I think you knew this question was coming, Eric, because you already.
I didn't.
Yeah, I think it's becoming. It's starting to look like we're going to need a booster shot, a one-year booster shot for the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccines. We don't know if that's the case. I mean, the very best news we would get would be like measles. You'd have lifetime immunity, and that would be that. But measles is a virus that never mutates, and this coronavirus changes constantly. So we're probably going to need to have a booster, and I think the public will be notified of this. We'll find out once people are. We're going to find out we're going to find out from people who are a year from their initial vaccination, long before the flu and COVID season come in the winter, what their immune status is at the end of that year. And then I think the public will be notified through radio, television, and maybe even the people that have been vaccinated. All that data is on record, and these people could be contacted through the state.
Okay. Next question. Why is it considered a fear for simply not wanting to receive the vaccine? Can it not just be a cautionary decision for one's own health?
You want to answer that one, Pete?
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily a fear. There are folks that just don't want to get the vaccine, but there are folks that have concerns about the long-term effects. And I think that's a fear or concern with the vaccine, whether it's a long-term effect, side effect from immediate vaccination, but not everybody not getting the vaccine has a fear of the vaccine, I don't think.
Sure, and I may have used the term fear, but there are reasons for people to hesitate. There are people who just don't like getting shots. There are people who just don't like needles. There are people who don't like doctors.
Hard to believe, but true.
There's people who don't like pharmacists too, so just so we're...
Really?
That is really hard to believe.
That is very hard to believe.
Or maybe it's just this pharmacist.
So there are various and sundry reasons why people aren't doing this. I think for those people who have concerns, fears about the quality of the vaccine, the effectiveness of the vaccine, the safety of the vaccine, the speed at which it was created and put out there, that is one thing. But there are other reasons, and one of the reasons we asked Pete to be on, because he does interact a great deal with people back and forth, and he might have been able to bring some thoughts to that. There is a concern among medical professionals at the smaller amount of people being vaccinated than was anticipated in trying to wipe this out of our lives. And I think that's the concern. People would like to see this go away, and for folks who have some medical background, their statement generally right now is, this doesn't go away without treatment, and the treatment is the vaccine. Am I misspeaking that in any way?
Yeah. Well, I think, the way the question was posed, I think the person asking the question felt that we were being disparaging by saying someone feared the vaccine. I think people, there are so many reasons people have for not getting the vaccine, and you named a great many of them, Eric. I think there are people that probably have a needle phobia. They don't want a needle in their arm. But I think people have concerns, I guess, and don't want to get the vaccine for that reason. But as a physician, I think I look at the science of it. I have total confidence in it, and I think the only way we're going to get out of this is to vaccinate our way out.
I'll let you jump in if you want to add anything to.
Vaccination is our way out, and we're looking at trying to figure out what are the obstacles for folks not getting vaccinated. And a concern of the vaccine is one of, if not the biggest obstacle for folks not to get vaccinated. And I think just having a line of communication with everybody around us, your friends, your circles, and letting them know you got vaccinated, and having an honest discussion of, for the people that haven't been vaccinated, why they haven't gotten vaccinated, and try to alleviate those roadblocks.
Okay. We are probably about 3 minutes till we're done. Dr. Jetmore, I'm going to allow you, if there's anything you want to tack in on the end, anything you feel like you want to say, need to say, I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to do that.
Well, you know what I'm going to say, Eric.
I'm going to give you a chance to. I'm going to give you a chance to say it.
I think a lot of people use the idea of not wanting to be vaccinated because they're young, they're not going to die from the disease will probably cause them a minimum effect on their life. But I want to say that get vaccinated for your fellow man. Get vaccinated for your family, your friends, other people you know, because when you get vaccinated, you'll never inadvertently spread the disease, and you won't be providing a vessel for this virus to mutate within your body. Because remember, these viruses do not change, they do not mutate except when they're inside someone. So, pitch in help, we can do this together, go out and get vaccinated.
Okay. Sir, as a member of the health board, as a local business owner, as someone who wants to get back to whatever normalcy will be, you got a minute.
Just right with Dr. Jetmore. Please get vaccinated and please support your local businesses. It's been a tough year for businesses.
Yeah.
Restaurants, bars especially, have had a really difficult year. And I think almost every restaurant and bar is doing a really fantastic job of taking precautions within their business, and encourage folks to support your local businesses, the boutique businesses throughout the community, and
Let's make it work.
let's make it work.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. Thank you for being here. Really do. Dr. Jetmore, as always, thank you very much for being here. Appreciate
It
it.
was great.
A couple of things that we need to remind you of as we head out the door. Being outside, a couple of ways you can do that. One is the Richmond Farmers Market. That is in its outdoor space in Elstro Plaza. That is every Saturday from 8 a.m. to noon in Jack Elstro Plaza. And Food Truck Wednesdays have also started. So those are, there you go. Food Truck Eat Local Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. in Jack Elstro Plaza. There is also Food Truck Fridays going on every Friday, May through August, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Golay Community Center. Want to remind you that Read Beside You airs Thursday evenings on WETV Channel 20. This month they're speaking with Craig Kenyon, Dr. Joseph Clemente, and Tom Hilkert, talking about Read Health's new mission, vision, and value statement. On May 11th, you can help celebrate the official opening of the Star Park Playground. That's at 311 North 15th Street, so get out and enjoy that. And also in Elstro Plaza coming up on the 13th will be Shakespeare in the Park. So that is going to be a good time. Again, outdoors, and being able to enjoy that downtown area and maybe visiting some of those downtown businesses. Thank you very much for watching this edition of Ask the Doctors on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. We'll be back next Friday afternoon at 2. As always, have a great weekend, and I wish you well.